We came into this weekend with big hopes. Gio Reyna was going to play. Christian Pulisic was going to start. You have Leeds, you have Fulham, maintaining the standard. We're feeling good about it all, weren't we? Well, it turned out to be a bit of a stinker of a week for our American players in Europe. And then, like a ray of light shining through, giving hope to the masses, Yunus Musah has an all-time performance. I was sitting there, my friend was going, "Why are you at home on a Sunday watching Valencia play?" I was like, well, I want to see Yunus Musah, but you also have Rino Gattuso, and you also have Hugo Duro. For those who don't speak Spanish, Hugo Duro is the name of the player, the striker. He's really good. Translates to Hard Hugo. So sounds like an adult film star, something out of Boogie Nights. So every time you hear the announcer say that, I chuckle, and that entertains me enough. But what really entertained me was what we saw from 19-year-old Yunus Musah. To me, sorry Brendan Aronson and Tyler Adams and Tim Ream for what you have done in previous games against Liverpool and Chelsea. But this was the best performance by an American player this season. I know it was against Getafe. Getafe, relegation candidate in Spain. They just got absolutely overwhelmed. Was it 5-1 the final score? Was that right? I should have written that down. It was just an absolute trouncing for Yunus Musah. So it got me to thinking, while we watch everyone in this U.S. player pool that we have already put expectations on, and those that we haven't, and maybe those that still might pop on this 2022 roster and make an impression in Qatar. It hit me watching Yunus Musah, and I'm not prisoner of the moment, although that really is my thing a lot of the times. Yunus Musah may very well be our best American player, the biggest star in the men's national team. Yes, Brendan Aronson and Christian Pulisic and Serginho Dest and Gio Reyna, none of them are doing what this guy is doing. So today on the Soccer OG, it's a little hot in here. I turned the AC. It's hot everywhere, I know. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Highly encourage you to listen to my conversation with Diego Balado of TUDN, talking about Liga MX and MLS relationships. We'll talk about the World Cup. And coming out, let's see, what is it? Labor Day night. The latest Soccer OG podcast, I will be joined by President and General Manager of the Sacramento Republic, Todd Dunavant, to talk about the U.S. Open Cup final. So check out some big podcasts coming out where all podcasts are available. Check out the library. Like and subscribe the Soccer OG here on YouTube. We're also going to have my top 5 players of the weekend, and I can already tell you who number 1 is going to be based on what I just said. It is Yunus Musah. What I saw from him reminded me of Paul Pogba in his prime, reminded me of Luka Modric, a midfielder with, box-to-box skills, who can hit a ball, who can be a scoring threat, who can support, distribute, you name it. And he moved into a more central role under Rino Gattuso. So the story with Valencia, they've gone through a lot of managers. And they took a chance with an Italian. Rino Gattuso exclusively played in Italy. Also played, I think, at Rangers, right, with Marco Negri, if memory holds true. So they took a bit of a risk. But in Rino Gattuso, who was, and I don't like to use this expression, the hard man of the Milan midfield, he still was an elegant player at times. He could be tough, but he could also bring a midfield together. And I think he's really seen Yunus Musah as this guy. And what I have seen in these 4 games to start the season, he has gone from a fringe player. Last season, he averaged 43 minutes a game. He's now up to 80. He really is becoming one of the 2 or 3 more important players on that squad. The work they give him. Everything seems to go through him. They look for him on the back of that plane in that central role, which is now a position he might be able to play for the U.S. men's team. Now, they played him on the right side of that midfield, almost like a winger. And you can see that's not his best position. He's not bad there, but what he does here, and those players that I can compare him to, is something else. Arturo Vidal, these guys, that's what I'm saying. I am seeing a superstar progression in Yunus Musah, a guy who could play for a Real Madrid. I'm telling you, because the La Liga teams are seeing it. Already AC Milan is sending scouts to look at Musa as if they're going to bring him over. But hold on. I think Musa could play for a bigger club than Milan. Yeah, that's right. There are bigger clubs in Milan. Well, the Serie A, not quite back yet. But Milan at the Derby della Madonnina, big win for them over the weekend. And they've already identified him. You know, a lot of Americans have been sort of projected to go to Milan. So it could be a club that we see a lot, as we all do every week, and check out American players. So he picked a great time to have that game. Greg Berhalter was there watching all the action. He was there a lot this weekend. He saw some games. I believe he was at the Old Firm Derby, which wasn't good for James Sands or Malik Tillman. But he was here, and he already knows what he can do. But, you know, you put it all together, and all of a sudden, Greg Berhalter didn't hold back whatsoever with regards to this player. In his third season, he said, you see the growth. You could clearly see no one's really giving him that credit that he has taken to the next level. Lots of change with Rino Gattuso playing there at the Mestalla and in that midfield role. And I get the feeling that might be a role, because now you have to, you're probably saying, wait a minute. What about Christian Pulisic? What about Weston McKennie? You got to go with a hot hand. And this guy's trajectory, you know, good preseason, good start to the season, 43 minutes to 80 minutes. He went 90 minutes against Getafe. He had 2 assists in this game. He had 3 chances created, 100% accurate crosses, 100% dribbles won. By the way, I'm getting this data. It was posted by USMNT Takes on Twitter, who provides that. I don't know where he got it, but I want to give him credit for being able to put that together, because that's what I'm using the information, so we'll give some credit there. So the numbers are just jump off the page, and it's clear to me that this is not going to be a regression story. This is a guy moving into his best life. Rino Gattuso is a part of it. Valencia is a place where he can grow. He's been there for 3 seasons, and he has improved every time. There's no steps back. It's only steps forward. So I'm thinking, here we are. Now, all the commercials for the World Cup are coming out. You see Christian Pulisic everywhere. Christian Pulisic started for Chelsea, which is good. Maybe Brendan Anderson gets some love. But, you know, between those two and Serginho Dest and Gio Reyna, none of them are anywhere close to what we're seeing here. Brendan Aronson and Tyler Adams to a lesser degree. Want to talk about Leeds here in a moment. But nothing like this superstar power. This was the best game I've seen him play. And it was by a lot. It was by a lot. So here he comes to make a huge impact. And let's get ready to build around Yunus Musah. The quotes from Greg Berhalter suggest that he was even more impressed. He goes, we've got something really good here. I expect him to be the best player we have at the World Cup. Just like that. I know I mentioned it before, but just like that, this is the guy. He's going to have a free kick goal. By the way, he had the 2 assists in this game, and then the game against Atletico, he had a goal of the season candidate taken away by VAR. And it wasn't him that caused the VAR, it was another player. But we can't just pretend that never happened, because it did. So the body of work is very strong. He doesn't get a goal for that, but in my estimations, you have to almost give him like half a goal because of the way he was able to complete that. So here we go. Celebrate Yunus Musah. It was a dire week for Americans, but then we have the best performance of the season. I expect him to top this. I expect the goals to come in. I expect the highlight reel to be pressed hard when Yunus Musah will become a household name. Let's talk a little bit about the negative, because Leeds United are in a little bit of trouble. Back-to-back losses. This was a bad one against Brentford, 5-2. A bad look for Jesse Marsch because his histrionics, he got a red card as he was arguing VAR. It was a horrible week for VAR or no VAR in the Premier League. And we got excited about what Leeds were able to do, and I think they'll be okay. They're not going to be fighting for relegation. But the problem with the Premier League is the depth. The middle of the clubs, the bottom of the clubs. I mean, West Ham was last place. They signed Lucas Paqueta. Is Leicester last place now? I mean, there's some teams at the bottom that you know are going to play well. There's no easy wins. Brighton is exceeding expectations. Brentford, Fulham, Nottingham Forest signed like 700 players in the offseason. Bournemouth, who beat Nottingham Forest, is really the only team that I would set aside as maybe a team that you should get a result against. Everyone else, it's up for grabs. Newcastle's massively improved. Spurs, Crystal Palace. There's no easy wins. So Leeds have to be careful that they get enough points here. Because that case at Brentford where they were, it was a close game late and then Brentford pulled away. And they have Ivan Toney, who is a really good striker, had the hat trick. He's a really good player. Well managed. So Leeds United have that against them. It's going to be, I've seen it now, it's going to be a grind. Tyler Adams and Brendan Aronson continue to start every game, but they need some help. They need some defensive help. They need some more depth off the bench. They need Patrick Bamford to be healthy. Rodrigo is out now. He was arguably their best player through the start of the season. So, they made some nice moves in the offseason. Roca in the midfield plays all the time. Adams, Aronson, Sinisterra scored goals in back-to-back games. But it feels like they need a little bit more. And I projected them to finish 10th. They may finish 12th or 13th. But the euphoria around Leeds is going to be stretched. NBC put their games on exclusively. I think they might stop doing that because it's not going to be a great draw. It's going to be rough sledding a lot of times. It's not going to be as easy as it looked. But they got those points early on, which is great news for Leeds United. And we'll see in the wintertime, I'm sure they're going to have an active market. Everyone in the Premier League is, because they all have the money and they all want to stay up. So we'll see what we can do. And I'll also say this about Jesse Marsch, that the yelling and all of that is going to get very old. He said it was a lack of respect from the referee, the reason that he was tested there. But that's there's managers behaving badly every week. We saw that with Conte and Tuchel. We know that Jurgen Klopp can ruffle some feathers. And Jesse Marsch falling in that category, but he doesn't have the clout of those guys, and he doesn't have those guys' teams. And the referees are noticing this. And if things go bad for Leeds, it will turn on Jesse Marsch. So I think he has to behave. He has to just have a little bit more decorum on the sideline because that could backfire on him. And they just need to get healthy. But it's going to be a bumpy ride for Leeds United. All right, let's get to the top 5 players of the week. Again, this was not like weeks past. So some guys make it here that really, in normal weeks, wouldn't have made it. Number 5, I'm going to give it to Christian Pulisic. I wanted to give it to Austin Trusty. Played another 90 minutes for Birmingham in the championship. They got an important win. But Christian Pulisic did get a start. He went an hour. Chelsea beat West Ham very controversially. And it's a foundation. He'll have Champions League coming up here soon enough. I don't think he'll start that game, but there's a lot more games for Chelsea, and I think Pulisic will start getting those important minutes. But this was a good step, so worthy of making a top 5 for Christian Pulisic. Even though he played a little out of position late, he had to cover in the midfield a bit. It is what it is, but I'm happy to put him on the top 5. Sam Vines makes his 3rd appearance here at number 4 for Royal Antwerp. They beat Westerlo, and Brian Reynolds started the game, so that's good. But Sam Vines is an everyday player for the leaders in Belgium, and they have had 7 games. They've won all of them. So they have 21 points. They are well on their way to winning the Belgian League, and Sam Vines has to be taken seriously as a fullback for the United States team. We see maybe him. Obviously, Joe Scally had another start for Mönchengladbach. He could have made a push for the list, but they lost to Mainz. Royal Antwerp's been a runaway train, albeit in the Belgian League. Number 2, Josh Sargent, the only guy who could compete with Yunus Musah on this list this week. He scored a goal, and he was involved in the other 2. So with the great performances he had, this might be the best one, as Norwich now into 2nd place in the championship. They beat Coventry. Josh Sargent is such a huge part of what the Canaries do. And the consistency, you love to see it. You love to see it. He's making it here a solid number 2. Oh, pardon me. I forgot Cameron Carter-Vickers at 3. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, CCV. He's at 3, so I got the numbers out of whack. But let's move forward. Let's move on. Cameron Carter-Vickers, it was in the Old Firm. Celtic beat Rangers. He didn't do anything super exemplary. Celtic had all the possession, and they scored all the goals, 4 of them. But he was part of the defensive effort to get a clean sheet and win a huge game. Looking forward to seeing how he performs here in the Champions League as well. I mean, that's going to be pretty big. Number 1, no doubt about it, Yunus Musah. I'm not going to say anything more except he is the best player right now in the U.S. player pool based on what we've seen in 1 month of action. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. And AC Milan may think they can just roll in there, but Real Madrid, top Premier League teams, Juventus, who knows it, they're going to be coming for Yunus Musah because he's that good. The Soccer OG. Like us here. Check out the Soccer OG podcast. Check out the library. Check out the new episodes. We'll see you soon.